Hey realists, it's November 30th. Hope you're staying warm out there for the State of the World Climate Update from yours truly, living in the slave world in the hell realm. Pardon my cat will try to interfere with the footage, but we can celebrate a potential Ukrainian victory from this vodka.
All right, that's whoa, easy.
It's okay, keep going.
And all the hundreds of thousands of people that have perished for no reason in another pointless, dragged out war over resources because we're in a predicament and addicted to fossil fuels, you guessed it. So hit the like and subscribe, use the donation link. This was brought to you by Mr. Breedlove out of Chico, California, coming through to keep me inspired. I've been taking some time off, R&R, if you will, because work can be stressful, and off-grid life is a lot of preparation, not to mention the single-digit temperatures next week will shake my bones. So thank you, hit the like and donation, subscribe. I'm not monetized. This is all out of my own willingness to tell the truth about our predicament. That says that a study in Nature Scientific Reports published on Friday claims that Africa's forests as a whole have crossed a critical transition from a carbon sink to a carbon source from 2010 to 2017, mostly as a result of deforestation in tropical, moist, broadleaf forests as a primary driver of biomass loss. In addition, the World Wildlife Fund report on the Amazon rainforest pointed that pasture expansion as a direct driver of deforestation across the Amazon region, responsible, according to our estimate, for 78% of immediate deforestation activity between 2018 and 2022. As you know, COP30, which can no less be described as a utter and complete failure. I agree with that statement from Johan Rockström at the Potsdam Institute, because emissions aren't decreasing and we aren't making any notable strides towards decarbonizing. In fact, we'll spend $8.1 billion on goods for Christmas this year. When people start turning to each other and actually talking about what's happening in public, then I'll start to change my mind. Otherwise, prepare for the absolute worst case scenario and a complete oblivion. So more on that in a moment. So much for 1.5 degrees. Temperatures are already 1.81 C above temperatures for late November, and surface temperatures seeing new daily highs. A strong hot-cold divide emerged in Europe last week, with temperatures in Central Europe as cold as January and temperatures in eastern Ukraine, Bulgaria, and Turkey as hot as July. A new minimum temperature was set on Japan's distant Pacific islands as well. The United Kingdom lost more land to wildfire in 2025 than in any previous year on record, and more than doubled its burnt area when compared to the terrible 2022 summer. A photographic cross-section of life in the Philippines struck by flooding paints a picture of life after the floods, although in some places their homes are still flooded 6 months later. Flood protection funding has stopped. Typhoons are more frequent. Beds have been raised to stand above the water that's made itself a permanent guest in people's living rooms. Living in water, literally, as 600 plus were killed in Southeast Asian flooding last week, as well as Thailand and Malaysia killed over 160, displaced tens of thousands. 300 plus were slain by flooding in Indonesia, with scores still missing. In Sri Lanka, 190 plus were left dead by floods. A volcano erupted in northeastern Ethiopia. Yet, although there's unknown and underestimated volcanic activity potentially to continue, as preparations are made for an ambitious quasi-geoengineering attempt to pump liquid CO2 over a mile deep below the seafloor into the former oil field in North Sea sometime next year. We're willing to do anything, including geoengineering, which is unproven at scale, because what kind of effect is that going to have on the web of life? We can only guess when we try it, as we hit 3 degrees Celsius by 2040. Again, my predictions stand: 3 degrees by 2040 and 5 degrees by 2050. I say by because plus or minus, but given the exponential rate of change and feedback loops emitting more CO2 from melting Arctic, burning peat moss, forests, there's a lot at play. And this is a complex issue. Obviously, I'm doing my best in this little broadcast to give it to you in, straight, no chaser format. So an interesting study on the levels of nature connectedness across 61 countries associated a kind of spirituality with stronger feelings to nature. Nepal placed number 1, followed by Iran, South Africa, Bangladesh, and Nigeria. Placing last among the surveyed nations were Spain, above which placed Japan, Israel, Germany, and Canada. The US was number 49. Surprise, we are so disconnected from each other and our environment. It is ridiculous. I was just out shopping for some work supplies this weekend as the rest of America spent $8.1 billion in online sales. Just going to throw that figure out while we're talking about destroying the biosphere. Great Athens was declaring a water emergency over encroaching shortages. Mumbai's swollen population is seeing another challenge for its air pollution. Data centers. Total data centers were using electricity equivalent to almost 2 million Mumbai residents. And the problem has grown since then. Coal power plants have been extended to service these computing giants within 5 years, 2030, when we'll be breaching 2 degrees Celsius and the world will be in complete fucking pandemonium. Data centers are expected to consume 1/3 of the megacity's total electricity. Just rocketing into oblivion. The UN says malnutrition and famine rates in Nigeria are poised to spike in mid-2026 as a result of aid cuts. Up to 35 million face severe food insecurity next summer. PFAS chemicals are making their way up the food chain. In Maine, almost 1.4 million have warned against eating wild turkeys that have fed from plants grown in PFAS-rich soil. And U.S. consumer confidence is dropping as the holiday season begins. Meanwhile, Moody's estimates that half of all consumer spending in the U.S. is driven by the top 10% of earners. Old data recently released after long government shutdowns that hiring is up, but so is unemployment. Growth continues to slow in the U.S. and Europe. When the music finally stops, will you find a chair in time? I got ahead of that curve and living out here in the woods, far away from most people, I do not regret it one bit. I consistently tell you I am thankful for being where I'm at. I'd like to take a commercial break, but I'm going to keep on with the facts a little bit longer. The data and evidence is too profound. Astonishingly, sea ice hasn't started to reform over the Barents Sea area yet of the Arctic. This includes record low conditions around Svalbard as well. It's been a very bad few months across the region. Meanwhile, while the Arctic sets new record daily lows, the global surface temperature continues to see new record highs. British farmers become world's northernmost olive oil producer. We're seeing in the last 10 years that the weather is changing and we're getting longer periods of dry weather and warm weather. This is the theme on the Climate Casino. Extreme heat, extreme cold. I know the Great Lakes region and Chicago is bearing down, along with the zoo. Extremely cold temperatures coming our way to New York. It'll be in the single digits next week, which means I got to start preparing to bolt out of here. The snow has not yet accumulated an inch or two yet, but that's about to change. I have studded tires in preparation for my front wheel drive car. Got to weatherize the cabin, get Una and I to a safe place. Now with all that out the way, I'd just like to give a little bit of social commentary on the dismal state of affairs in America, falling in happiness rapidly. Despite having unlimited choice of consumer goods, it seems, we can't muster up the energy to ask how we're doing, what your plans are for Thanksgiving. We just have our little circles, inclusive.
Steve fucking Lockjaw? What in the motherfucking fuck? How could it get any fucking worse than that? You're saying Steve Lockjaw? What?
When people start turning towards each other in public in shopping season and say, hey, the world's really not doing well. We're in unabated, accelerated climate change and warring nations are dropping bombs on each other. Then I may start to turn my head and change my mind that we are not headed towards complete, utter fucking catastrophe. I anticipate a 2 degrees Celsius world early next decade, and 3 degrees by 2040, 5 degrees by 2050. Why such accelerated change? Because that's the nature of exponential function. When you have runaway feedback tipping points, feedback loops in the climate system, it emitting more carbon on top of what we're already doing, not to mention whatever kind of wars are going to break out by then. I mean, China could still invade Taiwan around 2027 despite them telling Mr. Trumpo with the strokes that they're not going to do that. They're winning the AI race, and somehow we're just going to come up with this energy out of somewhere. So I'm just living to find out what happens next. I've given up basically everything to do with the American dream, which costs $5 million now. For the average Gen Z and millennial, 2 whole generations, they share 10% of the US household wealth, while boomers have 50%. Tell me how this is fair. Oh, but they worked for it? We don't have a fucking future. We won't get to retirement age. We won't get to collect stock market gains. Everyone is paycheck to paycheck. And if that nut job, Robert Kennedy, even admits that most people couldn't come up with $1,000 for emergency expense, you know things are bad. Worse than bad, they're crazy. So, if you're intelligent, you adapt. Given the circumstances and the predicament that we're in, using that word over and over, I just treat this as some long endurance test, like a tough mudding competition. Surviving to see the show. Humans rip each other apart at the grocery store when there are no more goods and supplies and fossil fuels can't produce the quality of life that we've had. The cops have been a total and utter complete failure. Again, I agree with Johan Rockström on that. Emissions have not decreased. When any members of Congress start dumpster diving, then maybe I might change my mind. So thank you to this community for hanging on. I know it's difficult day in, day out. And the approach that Panopticon takes on climate and economy is if someone brings up climate denial, I just don't have the energy. Along with him, he doesn't have the energy to debate or argue anymore. Just say, oh, it's a hoax, they claim. Oh, that's interesting, and just change the subject. At this point, it's futile to even change a stupid person's mind. All you can focus on is your energy, that is not toxified by just stupidity. And I think being depressed is entitlement. Although it is true that this is one of the worst times to be alive, and the inequality is as or more severe than the fucking Egyptians who built pyramids because they thought they were gods, that you can't still not take control of your own life in the circumstances that you have and try to be healthy, support friends around you in their creative endeavors, ask how people are doing, even if you don't really even care. I'm not all about it sometimes, but I still ask my coworkers and friends what they're doing for Thanksgiving. No one bothered to ask me. I'm not a martyr. I'm not painting myself on a pedestal. This is virtue, stoicism, if you will. Living with the highest ideal. And being depressed is just entitlement. That you got a shit deal, that it's bummed out, it's against you. It is a one in unimaginable number odds that you even got to be put into this existence. So feeling depressed is victim mentality. It's entitlement. Just get some Ukrainian vodka, watch Lethal Weapon or something. I don't know, it's the first movie that came to mind. There's a ton of free movies. I just watched The End of the Tour again. David Foster Wallace just hung himself at 46 years old. Can't say, he didn't have it coming. He had some severe mental health issues, and he was kind of a jerk, but he was way ahead of his time, noting that media addiction was going to be such a problematic behavior in the times that we live now, especially. I too am at fault of scrolling through YouTube's bullshit algorithm looking for that next dopamine hit. What's the next, EDC gear I should buy, or this commentator pointing out this fact. And most of the time you just read the title and you already know what it's about. I applaud Andrea P. and this other climate commentator, forgot her name, just getting up here and telling the truth that we're in civilizational collapse, the last stage of our fucking empire. We are cooked to the maximum. Crispy, fried humans. Live with excellence. Pick a few hobbies. Express yourself. You could be a blind kid on a train in India begging for money, changing sheets with cum stains on them. You could be driving a little putt-putt, I don't know what they're called, little car in India. I forgot. I know the name. I just forgot it. Thank your lucky star. You're in America and realize that there is no more community, social support, familial ties, marriage is dead, the American dream is toast. So what do? You just treat it like Running Man and have fun. That's how I adapted. If you couldn't tell over the past year and a half living off grid. Yeah, maybe I'm a little obsessed with hunting and survival gear, but it's fun. That's my hobbies. Because I know where this is headed. We don't have a fucking retirement. So rather not drag you on any longer. This community is priceless. And a few hundred views is all I'll get. We're beyond fucking hopeless. But everyone knows we're not heading in the right direction. What a conundrum. You doomers stay warm. I'll catch up with you next time. See ya.